when we first met, it was late 2015. And earlier that year, my grandmother had passed away from mesothelioma, which is asbestos-caused lung cancer. And in the process of her decline, my grandfather filed a wrongful death lawsuit on her behalf against the fiberglass company that was negligent in her death. And he won. And there was quite a bit of money that went down to heirs, myself included. And so about 2 months after Haley and I kind of like officially were like, yeah, I think we're dating, I received 2 checks totaling $600,000 just in the mail, straight to the mailbox, go deposit in the bank. You're good to go, basically.
We were 23 and 24.
Yeah, 23 and 24 years old, like cupcake lane immediately, head over heels. But both of us were raised by single moms and had no financial education. We had no idea of what tools or strategies we needed to employ to be wise and to do well with this money. And so because of that, we just started to spend it. And over the course of about 3.5 years, we blew through the 600,000 and got into about $220,000 of total debt, which was student loans, vehicles, credit cards, a timeshare in Mexico, just kind of this like traditional millennial story of not having financial education and doing things that we thought were the right things, such as buying a house and trying to go to school to better ourselves and whatnot, but not being prepared for the financial ramifications of what that truly meant. And so that led us to a lot of debt. And at the time, we were both teachers. And Haley had beaten me home one day, and she stopped by Costco on the way home. And she was about 8 months pregnant. And I guess you maybe weren't teaching still at the time.
No, I still
Yeah, I think you were still teaching. Yeah, it was like you taught like right up to the last moment. Yeah. Jeez Louise, that's wild. That's wild what we do to teachers in America. Nonetheless, so Haley beats me home, and she goes by Costco, and she says, "Hey, there's these really good pumpkin muffins in the kitchen. You should try them." And I decided to be an idiot that day and argue with my pregnant wife about whether or not we had $7 in our bank account to spend outside of our grocery list. And it really took us back. It was kind of that like, kind of soul-sucking conversation of like, wait a minute, we don't talk to each other like this. We don't have this type of an argument. What's going on? What's deeper here? And we realized it was this like financial tension and stress that we were living with.
And we had had so much money that was all of a sudden gone. It really just slipped through our fingers through a lot of lifestyle inflation and a lot of little things that kind of just added up. And then we were unable to spend $7 on something so minuscule like muffins. And that was the moment that we realized this is pretty ridiculous and we need to get our act together because we're bringing a child into the world and we deserve to be able to say yes to $7 muffins. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. And it was that moment that we just opened our eyes to what had happened to all of the money and the current state of where we were at. And we knew something had to change. So that's the moment that struck our chord.
I see. Was there any like clues along the way? Were things starting to get a little tense? Like I imagine there's a lot of stress with the money on top of the impending baby arrival. My wife is 8 months pregnant right now with our second.
Woo!
It's like we're right at that spot. So there's obviously a lot of tense feelings around. So were there any other indications? What was going on with you at the time?
There were some indications leading up, maybe like the year before. We had tried to kind of do some stuff to like fix our money a little bit. We did a little cash out refinance against our house to take some money out to clear up some debt and renovate some stuff. But we didn't really look at like, hey, why do we have to do a cash out refinance? Why can't we just use money in the bank account? Oh, the money is gone. We didn't really realize how bad it was until it was the muffin moment. So the tension wasn't truly there. It was just a bunch of little stuff. There were signs for sure. We would casually transfer like 20 grand over from savings frequently, but it wasn't like the sign of tension. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say the only time that I really felt that tension, there was like maybe a month or two before our pumpkin muffin moment, as we call it. We were on, I guess about a month before, we were on our anniversary trip, our 1-year anniversary trip after being married. And we were down in lovely Monterey, California, right? Is that where we were at? Yeah, Monterey. And I remember us walking down a street, and our anniversary is September 8th, so it's early in the month. And
well, that's important context because teachers get paid once a month.
Yeah, teachers get paid once a month. Typically, the last day of the month is when you get paid. So we gotten paid, August 30th or 31st, whatever it was. And we're walking down, one of the streets in Monterey, and Haley is talking to me about how we have blown through already our teacher paychecks for the month. between our mortgage and other utilities and bills we had to take care of. And so now all flexible spending will basically be going on credit cards. And it was the first time that I really realized, wait, I have no clue what's going on with our money. I'm totally tuned out. She was carrying all of the stress, all of the tension, all of the logistics. And I was kind of just like letting that happen. And that was really the first time that I realized, oh, that's probably not super healthy.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah. It is a very vivid picture in my mind. Like I can picture the house we were standing in front of when she said it. If I were to walk down in Monterey, I would probably be able to point it out pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, so that memory is like stamped in your brain. Yeah,
Exactly.
I totally get that. Those peak moments. What, after your pumpkin muffin moment, what are some of the first things that you did to kind of get on the right track?
Well, several years prior, my brother threw out the concept of like reading some books about finances, but didn't really know much more about it. Actually, that was before that.
Yeah, it was in like the summer before that we had actually listened to Total Money Makeover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was like this idea, maybe we should try to work on our money, but it wasn't really real until the pumpkin muffin moment.
Yeah.
But anyway, because we started our journey listening to the Total Money Makeover audiobook on a road trip, we immediately started listening to Dave Ramsey's podcast for 3 hours a day and just binging it, because at the time, this is October, November of 2019, and we were brand new to this space of wanting to pay off debt. And if you Googled, how do you pay off debt? That was the first thing that popped up.
Yeah.
So we just went all in on, okay, we're going to consume as much content as humanly possible about getting out of debt and see what kind of happens. That was like one of the first things that we did.
Yeah.
And then we did some logistical other stuff, like paying attention to what was going on with our money. We started tracking our spending. We made a makeshift budget that was really unrealistic, and then we had to tweak it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But
I ended up getting a second job as a server. So I was teaching all day. I'd come home, kiss Haley and the baby, and then I would go start serving pizza and wine from 4:30 to 10:30 at night. And that was just kind of the cadence to our lives for quite a while.
What was it about the Total Money Makeover that really kind of pulled you in and made you think, yeah, I'm totally in sync with this? What attracted you to it?
I think for me, personally, with zero financial education, I had never heard people transparently talk about money in a way that actually made sense. When I thought about money, it was some strange accountant statistic numbers, and it really overwhelmed me. But when I was listening, I was thinking, okay, this is a real situation that makes sense. It clicked in my head that we have debt, we can pay this off, and we can make a plan to attack it. And it just felt very easy to digest in that moment of so much overwhelm.
I think something actually that clicked for me is more so just the way that I think Dave Ramsey and a lot of his contributors or his personalities do a pretty good job of bringing you into the club. And so it makes you feel as though you are part of this group of like, we all have debt. I'm not alone. And for many folks, the loneliness and the shame and guilt that comes with debt, we want to find that like kind of quote unquote tribe, or that like club that we can be part of that says, yes, I know what you're going through emotionally. I know all these feelings. And that was really the thing for me, was when we started to unpack it, it was having somebody kind of put voice to that felt comforting to me.
And no one else knew we were in so much debt. A
Yeah.
lot of people didn't even know that we had the $600,000 to begin with. So they definitely didn't know we were drowning in like over $200,000 of debt. And being able to have the safe space of the triangle of Justin, myself, and Dave Ramsey, and the podcast playing in my head, it felt like at least I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And I kept hearing success stories from other people, and I'm like, well, at least I'm not alone. We made some terrible decisions, but I'm not the only one doing this.
Yeah.
And that was really validating in the moment when you're quite literally on the ground of your rock bottom.
Yeah.
Did you meet any other people who were kind of like in the same position through what you were listening to?
Steve Stewart said he can't hear Baker Street without thinking Dave Ramsey. So true. Anytime I was at the doctor's the other day and that song came on, I was like, oh my gosh, they're playing Dave Ramsey.
That's so funny. No, okay, that's a really good question, because we didn't really talk about it at all until the podcast. So that was what catapulted the concept of let's start a podcast.
Yeah.
So during COVID, we're in our like the original lockdown from March to May or whatever. We were online making stupid videos with little what was that guy's name?
Tiger King.
Tiger King. We're watching Tiger King. We're using all of the filters. And on my personal Instagram, one of my friends said, "You guys are funny. You should start a YouTube channel." And I said, "Absolutely not, but maybe something else." And we had started talking to some friends and family, a very small group of people, about how we're paying off all of our student loans and it's so much fun. And they were like, "Shut up. Please stop talking about this." I mean, we were just bragging about it all day long. And so we decided to start the podcast really just to normalize conversations about money and to share our story transparently. And it wasn't until then that we started to meet other people that were in a lot of debt, because the people we were sharing our journey with up until then were not in the same shoes as us. They were, quite frankly, annoyed and they didn't want to hear it. And when we started, we opened the community and opened the space for people to say, "Hey, I actually am in the same situation too." And then it was no longer just us and Dave Ramsey. It was us and everyone else. And that was also validating.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Yeah, what kind of steps did you take once you started the podcast to kind of like open it up and do more than a podcast, build a community?
Well, it really was just the podcast for the first year or so. And it was it was so cathartic for us, like really just to get our story out there. I think there was a lot of like personal healing. And one of the nice things was our parents were actually listening to the show too. And so there was this really kind of like pseudo conversation with them about like, "Hey, you kind of screwed the pooch on not teaching us this stuff." And without like openly calling them out and like confronting them in that way, it was just like very kind of soft launch of like having that conversation. So it was really nice for the first year or so doing it that way. But when we had started the podcast, we had coupled that with an Instagram, just thinking, "Hey, this is, like what everybody does. I think, you build an Instagram and let's do that." And so that is kind of how we started to talk about the podcast outside of the show as well, to try and gain traction or listeners. We had no business, I think, actually podcasting. We had no skill prior to that, but Haley took a podcasting course. And I'm pretty sure they probably told you in there to get an Instagram. Yeah.
They gave me some basics. But our first episode, we're at the dining room table in a very large room. It's the most echoey audio.
Yeah, so bad.
Great feedback from people being like, "You got to be in a different room."
Yeah, it's wild. But so for the first year, it was really just kind of like trying to do the show, sustain it, and have it, a small Instagram community that actually, cared to hear. And I don't know if we just kind of got lucky or if it was just kind of new to the market, I guess. I don't know, but we built a really solid little community of a couple thousand folks. Maybe I think it was like maybe 2,000 to 3,000 or something. Yeah, that cared about our journey outside of just our family and friends. And so after about a year of doing the show, we had our second daughter at the time, and Haley was unsure if she wanted to go back to the classroom or not. And in our season 1 finale, I just said, "Hey, Haley's going to be starting a financial coaching business in a couple months." And we hit pause on the recording. And I said, "You've got like 2 months to figure it out, dude. Good luck." And she did. So she started the financial coaching branch in 2021, in August of 2021. That's when it morphed into this like bigger thing than just the podcast.
We had our own financial coach on our journey who found us through our podcast when we originally started it. And so that planted the seed in my head about what financial coaching was. And then during COVID, everyone was distance learning, and I was teaching a bunch of 6th graders online through Zoom. And I'm hard of hearing. I have a severe hearing loss. I wear hearing aids, and teaching 36 6th graders in the classroom is very hard. It's hard to hear everyone. It's hard to manage that many people. But teaching 36 6th graders on the computer was the easiest thing I've ever done. I loved it. And I looked around and all of everybody else was miserable doing distance learning. And I was like, "This is great. How can I continue doing this on the computer? I don't know. I just felt like it was so accessible. I was thriving. Meanwhile, everyone else was absolutely not. And my classroom that I created online was a really cool space. And so I took that, like working with our own financial coach and this desire to maybe teach people on a computer, and married it together thinking maybe I'll start a financial coaching business. And we had met some people through our journey who were financial coaches. And so I started talking to them and learning a little bit more. And I joined some financial coaching, the Financial Coaches Unite Facebook group, and I started talking to people, and I learned that there was a program called the Financial Coach Academy. And we had sold our house in 2021 and walked with some money, thankfully, because we didn't blow all the money. Some of it did go into a down payment for that house. And I had a little bit of money to buy a course to learn how to do this business. And so that's kind of how the transition happened. It was just an idea. And then I thought, well, why not? What do I have to lose? Let's just try it. And so I did it, and it was the same approach of I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to figure this out with everyone along the way. And I think that transparency was what resonated so well with the audience that I was speaking to, because they also didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they were doing with their money, but they knew that they wanted to get out of debt, and they wanted someone to hold their hand, and they didn't want to feel judged. And so I was like, let me hold your hand and we'll just do it together. And it grew into the coolest, most beautiful thing I've ever created. Besides my kid.